Hello, everybody, and welcome to the My BFF Business Leaders Podcast. This podcast is designed to focus the spotlight on leading voices throughout the world of business. From marketing and technology to energy and finance, this podcast will feature brilliant minds that are shaping the future of every industry. There has never been a better time to make more business friends forever, so let's get started.
It's always been a dream of mine to start something from scratch. My dad had his own business, and I've always wanted to see if it was possible to start something that nobody knew about, and try to be successful at it. And it's sometimes a unique atmosphere where you can sit down and talk to all sorts of different people that are blue collar, white collar, business owners, whatever, and just have a great conversation with them. And that's really our mantra, is, building relationships through our spirit.
On this episode of the My BFF Business Leaders Podcast, we are joined by one of the founding fathers of MLH Distillery and Forefathers Spirits, Brian Myers. Brian fits the definition of an entrepreneur to a T, and has always dreamt of starting his own business from scratch. Fast forward to today, and he has not just established a successful brand, but him and his team are on their way to building one of the fastest growing spirit companies in Pennsylvania. In this discussion, Brian provides a behind-the-scenes look at what it takes to rise from a startup to a major player in this space, and how his mantra and goal to build relationships through spirits has always been the Forefathers' focus. Let's jump right into my conversation with business leader Brian Myers.
Yeah, my name is Brian Myers. I live in Western Pennsylvania, right now in Grove City, Pennsylvania. Lived here the majority of my life. I've been working in the franchise business for 20 years, and sort of how we got to where we're at today. I'll explain that a little bit later. But I got two boys. Unique thing about my boys, they're both born on Christmas Day. So both their birthdays are December 25th, 1996 and 1999.
Awesome. And so as we kind of now jump right into the thick of things with your distillery, how did the concept of establishing a distillery in Grove City, Pennsylvania officially develop for you?
We have a close-knit friends up here, just like you all do, depending on what sport your kids are in or what friends your kids have, you sort of get a close 4 to 6, parent group. And that's sort of what we have here in Grove City. And I'll explain that later a little bit about the Forefathers. But we always sort of wanted to do something, some type of business. And we never really could come up with an idea. And with my day job that pays the bills, I've been very fortunate. I travel all over the world. And I was in England, and actually in Dorchester, England to be exact. And I visited this little craft distillery called Fordington Gin. And it was really cool. The lady that owned it at the time, she had been a professional chiropractor for her entire career, 25 plus years. And she decided she was going to make some good gin, and she did. Anyway, she had a really cool story. And I'm like, that's kind of fun. So, long trip back from England, it's about a 7-hour flight. If anybody's taking that trip, it's always longer coming back because of the headwinds. And I'm thinking delusions of grandeur. Like, man, I could be their only independent distributor in the United States, and I'm going to distribute it, throughout the entire United States. I'm going to make $1 million. So I share that with my friends, and, quite frankly, thank God the state of Pennsylvania, you can't get any liquor delivered to. Like it's nearly impossible. Mm-hmm. So my one friend, Jack, we're sitting around the campfire like we all have in the past, and we're having a beer, and he said, you know what, I can make just as good a gin, or not, it's not better. And, jokingly, I'm like, yeah, whatever. And so we did some research, and over the past probably 8 years, from 2012, 16 and 17, there was different changes that happened to limit distillery license in the state of Pennsylvania, and made it more inviting for entrepreneurs to think about getting into that business. Now, getting into the business and opening it up was one thing, but to really figure out what we were going to do, we thought we were going to make gin. But obviously we had to pay the bills. Not a lot of people like gin. So that's when we decided to do some vodka, and obviously we're in some other things now. But yeah, so we, over a period of about a year and a half, we visited little craft distilleries in the state of Pennsylvania, learned from them. And the guys that we have in the group, the 4 guys, which we'll talk about, we'll call them the Forefathers right now, I'm being one of them. we all have our own unique skill sets. I couldn't do it without the three of them, and I'm hoping they couldn't do it without me. But anyways, the idea is Jack, our chief distiller, is brilliant when he comes up with recipes for vodka, gin, whiskey, bourbon, whatever it is. It's irrelevant. Coffee liqueur, cranberry liqueur. It's absolutely off the charts good. So that's one thing you have to have is, and when you visit these little craft distilleries, there's some really good ones and there's some really bad ones, just like there is in any business. And, but there's always a market. That's one thing we learned. There's always a market, no matter if we thought the spirits were good or bad, there was always a market for that. And the local distilleries in the state of Pennsylvania are forthright in telling them what's going on. How do they do it? They're not like hoarding all their information saying, we don't want to help anybody get into the business. They're more apt to help you than they are not to help you, which was kind of fun. Anyway, so we did our due diligence. We went through the process, and tell you a funny story, because hopefully one of the questions will be about the Forefathers. The first name we had was called Foursome Spirits, and obviously that doesn't have a really good charm when you get on the internet and try to search foursome. So one of our forefathers, his daughter and her husband said, why don't you call it the Forefathers? Because the forefathers in the business. Mm-hmm. And so we did a little spin on that and called it, FORE, Fathers. And that's how that started. And MLH is basically just a combination of our last names, Myers, Livingston, Hefner, and Hogue.
Awesome. Well, yeah, that's a fascinating story. And yeah, thank you for taking the time to share that with us. I mean, you're kind of living out the dream of creating a business, creating a very successful business as it is with four of your best buddies. So that's a business model that I think a lot of people would love to pursue if given the opportunity.
And it's something, it's always been a dream of mine to start something from scratch. My dad had his own business, and I've always wanted to see if it was possible to start something that nobody knew about, and I tried to be successful at it. So.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think a lot of people kind of mirror your mindset with that too and want to pursue their own dreams. So it's really cool to see it from a firsthand experience that you had success with it and rapidly expanding, which we'll get into later in the conversation as well. But to kind of circle back here too, I like the point that you touched on, that all four of you have really different kind of unique specialties. Could you talk a little bit more about how all four of you kind of work as one in a unified effort and what those specialties actually are?
Yeah, that's actually a great question. And I think the reason why this works so well for right now, who knows what happens tomorrow. But with the Forefathers, we have Dave Hefner, which takes care of all of our attorneys and LCB stuff. What I mean by that is making sure that we're compliant and make sure we get into the liquor stores, the fine wine and spirit stores. If we have any special needs, special projects, Dave takes care of those. Brian Hogue, he takes care of making sure that we're compliant with the federal government and the TTB to make sure that everything is dialed in, make sure all of our inventories are correct. And he also does distillation as well and comes up with his own recipes. But that's Jack's forte. Jack kind of puts things together. Kind of give you the analogy I always tell everybody is, when throughout the 20 years I've known these guys, we would do dinner parties together. We'll go out to dinner or what have you. But whenever you went to the Livingston's house, it was like a 5-course meal, and like the everything sort of complemented each other. From the snacks to the first course to the main course to the dessert to the wine, everything just sort of fit, and it was always off the charts good. You come to my house and you'd be lucky to get little weenies wrapped in croissants and a cold beer. But so that's how Jack thinks. That's his artist mind thinks. He's like, I want to create something, and he's really good at understanding all that stuff. And the only way I can that I put myself into this, just my personality, is I like to just meet people. I've been in sales my entire career almost, and so I just basically, they do all the hard work, and I just share their story and share our story, smile and shake hands.
Well, yeah, it seems like you guys do a great job of covering all grounds. I mean, yeah, you have the art side of things with crafting the recipes to you being kind of the social and really engaged one. And then, yeah, your friends kind of helping out with like the office aspects and the logistics of it all. So it's really cool to see how this is a friend or family run business, so to speak. And to tie that back, has the local community in Grove City or where you guys are from played a major role in your success thus far?
Oh, absolutely. We couldn't do it without our local followers and the local business guys that, sort of stuck with us in the beginning from, helping us out, finding a place from my landlord, which is a dear personal friend of mine, and making sure that we were successful there, make sure we found the right place, and other business leaders from around the area, sort of just giving us, hey, you can do it, keep going, don't worry about it, have ups and downs, whatever. It's a great community. And it's fun because you come to our place in our tasting room at MLH, and it's sometimes a unique atmosphere where you can sit down and talk to all sorts of different people that are blue collar, white collar, business owners, whatever, and just have a great conversation with them. And that's really our mantra is, building relationships through our spirits. So.
That's a great mantra, yeah, and I like that a whole lot. And could you, dialing it back just a second, could you shed some more light for our listeners on what the difference is between MLH Distillery and Forefathers?
Yeah, MLH Distillery is a physical location where our tasting room is at 107 Breckenridge in Grove City, and also where our production area is.
Okay.
So our thought or our big dream is down the road is to be able to have other distilleries even reach out to us to have private label stuff. Mm-hmm. And so we have our own brand. So MLH is a physical location, our tasting room where we do cocktails that, highlight obviously our spirits. And then we also have a production room there in our retail area. And then Forefathers is the brand. So Forefathers spirits, Forefathers vodkas, gins, whiskeys, bourbons, rums, liqueurs, whatever we have going that week, is the Forefathers brand.
And what are some of the spirits that you guys currently have in your inventory?
Yeah, we have vodka. We have 3 gins. We have a regular American dry gin, a Peruvian style gin, which is pink in color. And then we have what they call a Tomcat gin, which is a barrel aged gin that's spent a few months in a bourbon barrel. We have 3 liqueurs. We have a coffee, cranberry, and chocolate, which are basically cocktails in a bottle. So the coffee is actually, to do things locally. You question before was, how's the local people, support you, and it's been fantastic. So we teamed up with House Coffee Beans in Grove City. It's a 101-year-old coffee company, and we created a coffee liqueur that, quite frankly, is sort of our flagship. Everybody, when they taste it, if you like coffee, you're going to love our coffee liqueur. And then cranberry is basically just cranberry and vodka in a bottle. Just put it over ice. We have a single malt, American single malt, a bourbon. We have 3 rums. We just came out with a coconut rum last weekend that almost completely sold out the first run.
Wow. Wow, that's awesome. And yeah, to kind of go back, like you were speaking very highly of the coffee liqueur, is there other like fan favorites that really kind of resonate well with the regulars that you have on a week to week or day to day basis?
Yeah, I would say vodka and our bourbons and our single malt. Probably the bourbon be second, and the vodka be number 3. People tend to gravitate towards, and we come up with new products. If they like the bourbon, they like the vodka, they like the coffee or cranberry, whatever. The coconut was a chance, but we actually have a relationship with a place which I'd like to talk about a little bit down in Pittsburgh, 2103 Penn Avenue, which is Pennsylvania Libations, and they had mentioned to us that there's a coconut rum niche that we should expose. And I'm like, all right, I'm not really a big coconut fan, but of course, Jack put his mind out there. Him and his son actually put together a great recipe, and it actually tastes really good. And it was a great niche because on Facebook, coconut rum blew up for us, at least in a small amount of way, but almost sold completely out of it the very first weekend we had it.
That's awesome. And you've touched on this several times, so I want to jump right into it. Is it when obviously when you're building a business like this from the ground up and there's so much sweat equity involved, how did you guys go about establishing these relationships that you seem to be very, very strong with as of now at this point, still in the early stages? So what types of things do you guys do to help build those relationships with the distributors, bar owners, the consumers, and all those other people you're interacting and engaging with?
Well, locally, we give back a lot to a lot of the local, sports, whether it's, football, baseball, wrestling. We give back a lot throughout the year to them for their different fundraisers. And we actually have our own fundraiser for Grove City Wrestling. We give back quite a bit to them. So that obviously helps build those relationships. And we believe strongly in that. Bars and restaurants, when you live in Western Pennsylvania, like, I don't know if you all have for your entire life, you just know people, right? This person knows that person. And I've lived in Western Pennsylvania between Grove City and Franklin, PA, the majority of my life, and you just know people. So I would call them up, hey, do you like that? They own this bar, they own that bar. And we sort of started with the relationships we already knew. And then there was a couple of things we wanted to get into. One was a place, I don't know if you guys have ever heard of it. It's the only independently owned liquor store in the state of Pennsylvania. It's called Pennsylvania Libations. And it's a very unique liquor store. So it's about 15 other Pennsylvania limited distilleries. I think we're the 16th one. And really to be able to get into this location, the Strip District, in our first year, it's pretty much a coup. Not a lot of people do because they don't take everybody. And what this place is basically, imagine walking into a liquor store, being able to try or sample the liquor before you purchase it. Mm-hmm. They have a small little tasting where you can have a nice little sample of whatever bourbon, whiskey, rum, vodka from any Pennsylvania craft distillery that they have in their lineup. And then you can turn around, it's all over their shelves, and you can actually go right there and purchase those bottles. Mm-hmm. So we spent a lot of time sort of, the owner, Kristen Simmons, spent a lot of time trying to get to him to, hey, look at our stuff. And he finally looked at our stuff. And then, we went back and forth. And then in December of this past year, we actually got in there, which was really good for us. And then so it came up to the pandemic and everything got locked down. Liquor stores got locked down in April. And then to develop that relationship, we just started making a whole bunch of vodka for them. And just try to spend a lot of time with them, because when you're trying to sell your product at another location that you don't have the people that report to you, like in this case. So we had to spend a lot of time training them and understanding them and building that relationship so that when somebody would come in and say, hey, what about a vodka? What about a gin? What about a bourbon or whatever we have down there? They understood what was in ours, and they're very well versed of not just our distillery, but all the other 15 distilleries that Kristen has in his lineup. And it allows them to talk very passionately about each of the brands. We're just lucky enough that we got a great relationship with them. That's why we got into the coconut rum. That's why we got into the bourbon. They kept on saying, we need something. And they've been in the business a lot longer than we have. So we're just trying to learn from them and, obviously try to foster that relationship.
And if you don't mind me asking, how has the sales success been out of their location, and how is it I can imagine it's a very competitive space, obviously, with all the different offerings in that location itself. So how are you guys faring against those other 15 distilleries?
We're doing, I would say we're doing better than average. Mm-hmm. I would hope that obviously when somebody goes in there that there's so much to choose from that, at least we're getting a look at. And mm-hmm. I can tell you by the numbers every month that we are, because they're selling a bunch of our product. And it's not just going into the location, but they also, to your point earlier, how do you foster those relationships? How do you build it in the bars and restaurants? We don't have enough staff to get everywhere. Okay. Mm-hmm. So they actually have a staff of salespeople that will go out in like the bars and restaurants, even though they're closed down right now. But there are still some that have outdoor seating that are doing well, and they will push all their products, and ours being one of those. So we not only are selling up here, but they're selling down there. So to be able to last year at this time, all we had was, a little tasting room at 107 Breckenridge, and we're just starting to get into doing some events and some wine tastings and that sort of thing. Mm-hmm. Now we have our place, and we've got the place down in Pittsburgh, and we're in a couple wine and spirit stores too.
That's great. Yeah, that's awesome. You guys are expanding rapidly. And to kind of circle back now with, like you were describing, just the team itself, do you guys go anywhere outside of the Forefathers? Who else is kind of on your team or helping you guys, whether that be in the tasting room or elsewhere with distribution?
So we have actually one of our employees, Tyler. He's actually a son-in-law to one of the Forefathers, David Hefner, and he takes care of sort of the bar, and he also does all of our deliveries and some sales for us up north here. And sort of him and his wife take care of our events, making sure that we have somebody staffed for the events, making sure that we have events coming up, that we have music coming up, we have outdoor concerts at our place now. So they sort of take care of that. My son, I know he's one of the Forefathers, but part of the Forefathers, but he takes care of all our distillation. Jack's son takes care of putting together some recipes for us and does a great job with branding. If you saw the coconut rum label, that was all him. He did a fantastic job with that. And then there's one person probably that's not in the family, but we consider her family. She does a lot of our events, like our off-site events. Her name's Denise. She's not only a bartender for us, does events for us, but she also does events. She's a bartender at Bravo in Cranberry.
Awesome. Yeah. And I think I know I would, and I bet our listeners would too, love to hear more about kind of the events that you guys have hosted elsewhere or hosting at the tasting room itself. And could you dive a little bit deeper there?
And so some of the events, well, this year's been unique, obviously. Mm-hmm. But it seems like every week we're trying to reinvent our company. And I was telling somebody the other day, it's like we've been in business for 10 years, and it's only, over these past 5 months, it's just been so much, strange, right? Everything's locked down, nothing's locked down, everything's locked down, 25% capacity, all these new things we had to try to find a way to make a living. So last year, if you would have asked me, events are easy. We did night markets down in Pittsburgh. We did a lot of wine and spirits, wine tastings and that sort of thing. And those, you just go and you do a tasting, and they were all over. This year, all those canceled. Mm-hmm. And that was obviously part of our financial plan coming into this year, to sort of expose all those and, try to, maximize our revenue from those. And that wasn't going to happen this year. And the one thing that I've learned, and I think I've always known it, but it became more relevant recently, I guess. You just got to have to say yes. So somebody would call up and say, hey, we need booze at the River Nymph Landing in Kennerdale. We're having 2 bands. And I would just say, okay, we're going to do it. Or the drive-in theater, because they're not having, there's no movies coming out. They're starting to hold outdoor concerts there. So you guys want to be the alcohol there. Last weekend, we did a rodeo.
Wow.
So, and we're also learning more about what we can and can't do with our license. Mm-hmm. So when we have these, what they call expo permits, and we know as long as we are distilling it, we're making it, we can make cocktails almost anywhere in Pennsylvania, mm-hmm. at any event. Like this weekend, we're at Poker Run and Cork and Fork in Brookville. And it's amazing that things have changed so much, but things are we see it starting to open up a little bit, where people are just, probably thinking like the guys out in Sturgis, there for the bike rally, but maybe not to that degree yet. But there's a lot of people wanting to get out and do something.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I know it's so difficult to obviously project the future, especially when it comes to being in your space with all that's changing in terms of the restaurant and alcohol industry as a whole. But do you guys have any sort of kind of plans or developments down the road that you see imminent, whether that be kind of new products or spirits that you guys are rolling out or new events you'll be hosting, anything along those lines that we should keep an eye out for?
Well, we will. We have we teamed up with a local barbecue guy, Ray Atkins. So we're going to have barbecue at our place every Friday and Saturday night. Big Daddy's Rolling Smoke Barbecue. You can check them out on Facebook and online. when we talked about building relationships through spirits, this is a relationship that's been festering probably for 40 years. Ray actually used to go to the same church my wife, and my wife's dad actually helped him get adopted back in the day.
Oh, wow.
Fast forward 40 years, he's looking for a place to kind of hang his shingle. And we had a nice place for him to do, and we had starting a great partnership.
Great. Well, I know I'm a huge barbecue fan myself, so I'm sure people like myself will be jumping all over that opportunity and be seeing you guys real soon.
Absolutely. Thanks. I appreciate that. So that helps, it's just not cocktails. It's all outside right now until we get to probably 50% capacity. And being outside allows us to, sort of preach to practice social distancing and everything like that, because you're outside, right?
Mm-hmm.
We don't have to worry about all the rules and regulations when you come inside the building. So.
Great. And to kind of go back to your products and spirits themselves, is there a specific place where our listeners can go to find your products for sale?
Yes. Well, obviously you can buy them at Libations in the Strip District at Pennsylvania Libations. I believe that's 2103 Penn Avenue. You can buy it at our place at 107 Breckenridge, Unit 2 in Grove City, PA. There's 9 liquor stores, Pennsylvania wine and spirit stores throughout Western Pennsylvania. And then the best place to get it is just to go on our website, mlhdistillery.com/shop. And you have access to all of our products, and we can deliver anywhere in the state of Pennsylvania.
Awesome. And yeah, any kind of more developments that you expect to kind of be made with the shop or the offerings there online that can kind of help the consumer experience and find you guys easier?
We are gonna go through a little bit of a web design to tie in building relationships through spirits more to the design of the website and more the look and the feel of the website, and just make it easier for everybody to access and make it easy for everybody to receive our spirits.
Fantastic. Yeah, I think that's something major, that especially at these times with everybody kind of at home and some people really being tentative to kind of go outside and be active there with everything that's going on, being able to ship right to the door and get any spirit of their choosing will definitely be helpful.
That's right.
Awesome. Well, now kind of we end the same, or all of our episodes the same way, with firing off some questions, just so our listeners can get to know you a little bit more better and a little bit about your personality. So you ready for this kind of lightning round?
I'll try my best.
All right, let's do it. So the first question we always start with is, what was your first car you ever owned?
It was a Ford Ranger.
Okay.
Pickup truck.
Have you upgraded since then? Is it safe to say, or are you still in the truck area?
I still have a truck. Yep, I still have a truck. It's still a Ford.
Awesome. And what is your favorite, personally, Forefathers spirit?
My favorite would be our bourbon.
Okay. And who is your favorite sports team to root for?
The Steelers.
All right. Good Pittsburgh fan right there. And then if money weren't an object, and obviously COVID wasn't a risk at like this time period, what vacation destination would you go to right now, and what would you do there?
That's a great question, and you're going to laugh at my answer because I've actually been all over the world, I'd go to Australia probably 17, 18 times through my other job, and I've been all over Europe, the UK, all over the United States, and the only place that I would go back and that I would consider a very unique place would be the Colorado Springs, Denver, Colorado area.
Okay, cool. You a big skier?
No, I like to hunt and fish, and it's just a beautiful setting driving from Colorado Springs to Denver or back.
Yeah, I can imagine. I've never been out there myself, but definitely have heard only positive things about it. That will wrap us up today, Brian. Really appreciate you taking the time again. Any kind of closing remarks you'd like to make?
No, be it. I really appreciate you guys, and thanks for this opportunity. Feel kind of humbled because we've only been doing this for about 18 months, and to be able to be asked on this podcast, I really appreciate it.
Thank you again, Brian, for taking the time to join us today, and thanks to all of our listeners for tuning in. Be sure to visit the MLH Distillery online at mlhdistillery.com/shop. That is mlhdistillery.com/shop. And we'll see you all soon on our next episode of the My BFF Business Leaders Podcast.